It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday. I am with Ralph Renaud, the head brewer of Barrel Amongst Brewing. I am Kevin Abbott, one of the owners of Barrel Amongst Brewing, and we are continuing the conversation about Winter Storm by Heavy Seas. Now we're in the winter beer season. I love, we're getting past the fall. We just did all the pumpkin beers. We just did a bunch of Oktoberfest beers, Fest beers, Marzens. Now we're into the winter beer season. Winter beers they run the gamut, right? Belgian dark strong ales, even Belgian golden strong ales. Holiday beers are very big. This is an ESB, and I feel like you get winter warmers. You get usually big, malty, somewhat sweeter beers a lot of times during the winter season, but then you have someone like Sierra Nevada with their IPA coming in for their winter beer. Then you have something like an ESB, so it runs the gamut. You really can't put a winter ale into a box. Every brewery does their own little thing. I'm excited because the variety is great, and this is a beer that we just did a beer from Heavy Seas. We just did their Greater Pumpkin. I love this brewery. I love it back when they were just called Clipper City Brewing. There's so many great beers. We've sung their praises before, but I kind of forgot about this one. I used to drink this a lot when they changed over to their new packaging a few years ago. I kind of got lost on the shelf a little bit with me, and I saw it and I'm like, man, I think I really like that beer. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, I used to drink this all the time. This is a great ESB. It's a great style that I love. I've been talking a lot. Ralph, you're a bitter guy. You're a hop guy. I feel like this is right up your alley.
Yeah, so I love ESBs in general. Obviously, this does a great job of a nod of the classics, and I won't name all those, but everybody knows those British breweries and who they are. But what I really like about this is, it, like you said, it does have some bitterness, but also the biggest thing I always kind of knock is, and it's no one's fault, but like a lot of times we get, when it is like a European style and we try beer from Europe, you don't know how long it's been sitting or how long it had to travel. Mm-hmm. So while a lot of people might think this has slightly more bitterness than a bitter should have, I think it's more to do with the fact that we can get this readily available and fresher. So it's not so much that it's any different, it's just fresher. And on top of that, you have this malt bill that I was kind of saying before. There's something about the malt combining with the yeast character that brings back a memory I can't place, but it's a great flavor. But the way everything blends, like the yeast doesn't stand out, and I mean that in a great way. It doesn't give you anything fruity that might not fit the style. It's very clean. Mm-hmm. And then the malt bill, I want a lean caramel. It's firm enough where it does have this like, the only way I can describe it is like a malty character, because it's not quite bready, but that's what I like. There's no, it kind of works in unison. So you get the hops right up front, what I think of as like a ESB with, I think you even said that tea character. And then you get this just slight caramel that just blends into this neutral yeast that I think
kind of subtle, right?
Yeah.
It's in the background, it's not dominating, which is really nice. Yeah, I mentioned that when we were kind of prepping for this, is that I'm getting this great like black tea bitterness and aroma to it. I'm getting pine resin, I'm getting lemon, but like a pithy lemon zest, not like a super fruity like West Coast style IPA. So there's super complex, a lot of earthiness here. And I think that's appropriate for the style. I've drank a lot of ESBs over the years. I haven't drank a lot recently because there's not a lot of breweries in the U.S. that are making ESBs these days. We have a friend, Dustin Jeffers, who was just on Old Favorite Friday recently, who every time we talked about great styles, he would always say, ESB, I'm going to make an ESB. I'm going to bring ESBs back. And because they're such wonderful, wonderful beers, and they do that thing where they give you malt flavor and hop flavor together in a really drinkable, classic style. Which is wonderful. And it's funny when you first start getting into these beers, and if people are still drinking ESBs or understand the style as much, is that ESB is extra special bitter. Mm-hmm. And then for 15 years in the American craft beer market, every single IPA was much more bitter than any single bitter. And people would think, oh, I can't drink that, that's too bitter. Well, they were less bitter than the IPAs. But now things are coming back around, and the extra special bitter has a little more bitterness than your typical West or East Coast hazy IPA that's all fruit forward. So we kind of come back around on this. The name is a little bit more appropriate given the current beer market.
Yeah, and what I think is super cool, being the IPA hop guy, whatever you want to call me, is I'm a big history fan too. And when you read the history of like IPA and ESB, there's this weird thing for a while, at least with craft beer, is like IPA, at least for us, was like the newer of the two styles. But actually, IPA is like the father, so to speak, of ESB over in Great Britain from, now this is like 150 years ago or whatever. But then during like World War I and taxation change and they were trying to lower the alcohol and this and that. Then you got your bitters, and then it's funny how then IPAs in a modern sense came back from that. But I just love how they kind of, as a history, they're very much almost like go together, and almost like you can't really talk about one without talking about the other because they have so much to do with one another historically.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Ralph, this is 7.5%. Is that a little high for an ESB?
Yeah, traditionally, yeah, even because as we were just talking, what the kind of how ESBs came about. So now they could make the argument how there's bitters, ordinary bitters, and in this case, extra special. So you have a little leeway with a little more ABV, but traditionally they'd probably be close to 6.
Yeah, but it does it flawlessly, and also I like the fact. I mean, this is not just an ESB. This is their winter ESB. So having a little more body, a little more richness, it makes sense. The alcohol is well hidden. I'm not getting any kind of booziness going on with this. The other thing I love about this beer is letting it warm up a little bit. You get a lot more aroma and flavor.
Yep.
And the other thing about any beer that has more than moderate bitterness is that there's something about, as you drink it, your tongue gets a little more accustomed to the bitterness, right? The shock of bitterness in the front end, even for people that drink bitter beers all the time, is always like a little much. It's almost like hot pepper or peat smoke with a nice, scotch, a peaty scotch. But then as you drink it, the bitterness kind of mellows more and more. Your tongue is used to it, and then you taste all those extra flavors. And as this thing is warming up and I'm getting a little more accustomed to bitterness here, I'm just getting that malt flavors coming out more and more. I'm getting the nuances of the hot flavors. This is really a beautiful beer. And we've talked a lot about, Heavy Seas and their portfolio, and it's really hard to find a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. As you always point out, you even call them Clipper City. I know them more as Heavy Seas, but that's how long they've been around, where they've even gone through some name tweaks, so to speak. But so, yeah, I've always loved them, and I love their, like you said, I love their take on this, and the cool thing that you were just talking about with the even that hop bitterness and how it kind of becomes more into the beer. That's really cool because, as you said, as the beer warms up, you do get more of that malty character. So it's really smart on their end to give you that little extra bit of bitterness, because as it warms, you don't lose that, so it doesn't become too much in one way. So they clearly know what they're doing and have been doing it for a very long time.
Expertly balanced. If you are an ESB fan and you like the classic old world ESB, you're going to be happy with this beer. It is their own take. It's a little higher in ABV, maybe a little bit touch more bitter than a traditional ESB, but that just makes it their own. And nothing is out of balance. Everything is just delicious, wonderfully done. Kudos, cheers, applause for another great beer, and a good beer to kick off the winter season for us. This is the first winter ale that we're going to have, and we're going to have many of them. We have a whole couple months coming up. We're going to do some Christmas beers, more holiday beers. I'm excited for it. It's a lot of fun. If you have a favorite winter ale, this is the time of year, tell us now. Maybe we can work it into the schedule. Please poke around our YouTube channel, find out other conversation we have. You can see other beers that we've done by Heavy Seas. We did Greater Pumpkin, and there's one of the beer that we did from them, the Loose Cannon, which I almost called Hop 3, which I think it used to be called. Once again, I'm old. But you can see other videos that we talk about this great brewery and other great breweries, and we'll appreciate that. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.